If you think tenderizing beef just means pounding it with a mallet or marinating it overnight, you have been missing the real method Chinese chefs have used for generations to make even the cheapest, toughest cut taste like it came from a five-star kitchen. Chinese restaurant cooks across Guangzhou and Sichuan build their entire technique around a complete system, not a single trick. Today, we are counting down 21 techniques that build toward that exact secret method. Stay until the end because number 1 ties every single piece together into one repeatable system that guarantees tender, juicy beef every time. Number 21. Choosing the right cut. Most people grab whatever beef is on sale, never considering that some cuts are simply built to resist tenderizing no matter what technique follows. Flank, skirt, and sirloin all carry a looser muscle fiber structure with less internal collagen than cuts like chuck or brisket, meaning they respond far faster to slicing, marinating, and quick high-heat cooking. Restaurant cooks across Guangzhou's stir-fry kitchens almost exclusively reach for flank or skirt steak when speed and tenderness both matter, reserving denser cuts for slow braises instead. Ask your butcher specifically for flank steak or skirt steak. Cut about 1.5 pounds at a time and avoid anything labeled stewing beef if your goal is a fast stir-fry. The looser fiber structure means every later step in this system has dramatically more to work with. Choosing correctly here sets up everything that follows, and what eventually hits your plate comes out silky, tender, and noticeably more giving with every single bite. Number 20. Cutting against the grain. Most people slice beef in whatever direction is fastest, never checking which way the muscle fibers actually run before the knife ever touches the meat. Chefs across Sichuan province always identify the direction of the fibers first, treating this as the single most important knife skill taught in any professional kitchen, more important than any marinade that follows. Cutting across the grain shortens each individual myofibril strand within the muscle, breaking the long fibers into short segments that feel tender when chewed instead of stringy and resistant. Look closely at the surface of your beef. Identify the long parallel lines running through the meat. Position your knife perpendicular to those lines and slice straight across into pieces about 1/4 inch thick. Every piece comes out noticeably easier to chew and far more pleasant in texture than beef sliced the wrong way, no matter how good the marinade underneath it happens to be. Number 19. Slicing it thin. Most home cooks assume marinating time matters more than thickness, leaving beef in a bowl of sauce for hours while slicing it into chunks far too thick to ever truly absorb flavor. Marinade compounds and tenderizing agents only penetrate a few millimeters into raw meat through diffusion, meaning a thick piece stays seasoned only on the surface no matter how long it sits. Slice your beef into pieces no thicker than 3 millimeters, roughly the thickness of a coin, working against the grain as you go. Street food vendors across Chengdu, where thin sliced beef appears in countless quick stir-fries and hot pot dishes, have always prioritized thin slicing over long marination, knowing speed depends entirely on surface area. A thinner slice means marinade reaches every fiber almost instantly instead of only the outer edge, and what results is tender, evenly seasoned beef in a fraction of the time thick cuts ever require. Number 18. The cold water rinse. Raw beef carries surface blood and small fragments of bone or connective tissue, especially when freshly cut by hand, that can leave a finished dish tasting slightly metallic or muddy if left untouched. Home cooks across Fujian province routinely rinse sliced beef under cold running water before any marinade goes on, treating it as a basic, non-negotiable first step regardless of how clean the meat already looks. Place your sliced beef in a colander and rinse under cold water for 30 seconds, gently separating the pieces with your fingers as the water runs through. Cold temperatures slow the rate of osmosis between the meat's surface and the surrounding water, rinsing away surface residue without pulling out the meat's own internal moisture in the process. Most people skip this step entirely, assuming a marinade alone will mask whatever sits on the surface. What remains is beef that tastes cleaner, fresher, and noticeably more neutral before any seasoning ever touches it. Number 17. Pat completely dry before anything else. Most people move straight from rinsing or storage into marinating, never stopping to fully dry the beef in between. Lay your beef slices flat across several layers of paper towel. Press down firmly and replace the towels once if they become saturated. The surface should feel completely dry to the touch before continuing. Wet beef carries a thin film of water across its surface, and that water increases hydrophobicity resistance against marinade absorption, effectively repelling oil and sauce-based seasonings rather than letting them soak in. Restaurant prep cooks across Hong Kong drying meat thoroughly before any seasoning touches it. Treat this step as essential, never rushing past it even during the busiest service hours. The marinade that follows clings immediately and evenly instead of sliding off, and the beef that results absorbs flavor deeply, coming out richly seasoned all the way through rather than diluted and bland. Number 16. The baking soda dry rub. Rub half a teaspoon of baking soda per pound directly into your sliced beef using your fingers, working it evenly across every piece. Let it sit untouched for 15 minutes. Most home cooks skip alkaline tenderizing entirely, relying only on marinating time to soften meat that needs far more direct intervention than a marinade alone can offer. The added alkalinity raises the surface pH of the meat, loosening the tightly bound protein structure on the outer layer of each fiber before any heat or marinade ever gets involved. Restaurant cooks across Guangzhou have used this exact alkaline method on tougher cuts for generations, treating it as the real starting point behind silky, restaurant-style stir-fried beef. Rinsed off properly afterward, this single step transforms the texture before cooking even begins, leaving the beef noticeably softer and more pliable to the touch. Number 15. The rinse-off timing rule. Most people either forget to rinse off baking soda entirely or leave it on for far too long, both of which ruin the final texture in opposite directions. Chefs across Sichuan province treat the rinse timing as precise rather than casual, watching the clock closely whenever baking soda touches a batch of beef destined for a quick stir-fry. If baking soda sits on beef for longer than 20 minutes, the alkaline environment pushes denaturation too far, breaking down the protein structure until the texture turns mushy and unpleasantly soft instead of tender. Set a timer for exactly 15 minutes. Rinse the beef thoroughly under cold running water for 30 seconds. Then pat completely dry before continuing to the next step. Most people skip timing this altogether, assuming more time automatically means more tenderness. Getting the window right leaves the beef firm enough to hold its shape, yet remarkably tender once it finally hits the wok. Number 14. Velveting with egg white. Restaurant chefs across Guangzhou rely on this exact technique to give thin sliced beef that signature, silky, almost slippery texture found in nearly every Cantonese stir-fry. Coat your beef in 1 egg white, 1 teaspoon of cornstarch, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt per 200 grams of meat. Let it sit for 15 minutes before cooking. The egg white coating undergoes gentle denaturation the moment it briefly hits warm oil, forming a thin protective seal around each piece before the beef itself ever touches direct high heat. Most home cooks skip this step entirely and stir-fry beef directly, leaving it dry and tough by the time it finishes cooking in a hot wok. Drop the coated beef into oil heated to 160 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 seconds, then remove. The texture that follows is silky, tender, and almost slippery in the best possible way. Number 13. Velveting with cornstarch alone. Most people assume velveting always requires egg white, never realizing a simpler version exists for nights when time is short. Coat your beef in 1 tablespoon of cornstarch and 1 teaspoon of neutral oil per 200 grams of meat, tossing until every piece is lightly and evenly covered. The starch molecules undergo a light gelation when they briefly meet hot oil, forming a thin barrier around the meat's surface that holds in moisture during the fast cooking that follows. Home cooks across Beijing preparing quick weeknight stir-fries often reach for this lighter cornstarch-only method, saving the egg white version specifically for special occasion dishes. This step takes under a minute and skips the resting time egg white requires entirely. The beef that results comes out tender and lightly coated, with a noticeably cleaner, lighter texture than the richer egg white version. Number 12. Adding rice wine to the marinade. Most people assume rice wine in a marinade exists purely for flavor, never realizing it actively works on the meat's texture as well. Mix 1 tablespoon of Shaoxing rice wine directly into your marinade alongside your other seasonings, coating the beef thoroughly before it rests. The wine's natural acids and esters support gentle enzymatic activity within the marinade, helping loosen tightly bound muscle fibers far more effectively than a marinade without any alcohol present. Households across Shaoxing, the city the wine takes its name from, have added it to beef marinades for centuries, treating it as essential rather than a flavor option to skip. Beyond flavor, this step quietly does real structural work on the meat as it rests. The beef that follows tastes cleaner, smells noticeably less gamey, and carries a tenderness store-bought marinades rarely achieve on their own. Stay with me because number 5 is coming up, and it is the single timing mistake almost everyone makes the moment beef hits the wok. Number 11. The oil seal step. Marinated beef sitting in soy sauce, wine, and cornstarch develops a slightly tacky coating that increases viscosity right before it hits the wok, often causing pieces to clump together the moment they touch hot oil. Most people skip this step entirely, dropping marinated beef straight from the bowl into the wok without any further preparation. Toss your marinated beef in 1 additional tablespoon of neutral oil right before cooking, separating each piece with your fingers as you go. Home cooks across Sichuan province, preparing stir-fries for large family meals, have always added this final oil coating, treating it as the last safeguard against clumping before the wok ever gets hot. The oil coats each piece individually, keeping them separated in the pan rather than fusing into one dense mass. What hits the wok sears individually and evenly, coming out beautifully separated instead of clumped and unevenly cooked. Number 10. Resting time before cooking. Most people marinate beef and cook it immediately, never giving the seasoning any real time to settle into the meat. Once fully marinated and oiled, let the beef rest at room temperature for 10 minutes before it ever touches the wok. The proteins on the meat's surface continue a slow hydrolysis during this rest, breaking down slightly further and allowing marinade compounds to settle more deeply into the fibers than they could during active mixing alone. Restaurant cooks across Guangzhou, preparing beef stir-fries during the lunch rush, still build in this short rest, never rushing straight from marinade to wok no matter how busy service gets. Skipping this step leaves flavor sitting mostly on the surface rather than throughout. The beef that follows tastes more deeply seasoned and noticeably more tender than beef cooked the moment marinating finishes. Number 9. The blanching shortcut. Most people assume blanching is only for vegetables, never realizing a brief dip in hot water or oil can dramatically speed up beef's tenderizing process. The brief high heat exposure triggers an early stage of the Maillard reaction on the surface, while gently pre-cooking the outer layer, giving the final stir-fry a head start before it ever reaches the wok. Briefly parboil your sliced beef in lightly oiled water at a gentle simmer for 15 seconds, then remove immediately and drain. Home cooks across Fujian province preparing large batches of beef for big family dinners have used this exact shortcut for generations, especially when time before guests arrive runs short. Most recipes skip this step entirely, relying on the wok alone to do all the cooking work. The beef finishes its final sear noticeably faster, coming out tender and evenly cooked without ever drying out. Number 8. Hot wok, cold oil. Most people heat their oil first, then wonder why the beef sticks the instant it touches the pan. Cantonese stir-fry cooks across Guangdong province always heat the bare metal first, treating this sequence as the real secret behind a stir-fry that never sticks regardless of what protein goes in. Heat your empty wok over high heat for 90 seconds until it lightly smokes. Add 2 tablespoons of cold oil, swirl immediately, then add your beef right away. Heating the metal before the oil creates a brief vapor layer. The instant the beef touches the surface, a small but powerful shift in how heat transfers through conduction at first contact. Adding oil to an already hot pan reverses this effect entirely, leading directly to sticking and uneven cooking. The beef sears instantly and releases cleanly, coming out beautifully seared with no sticking at all. Number 7. Never overcrowding the wok. Most home cooks dump an entire batch of beef into the wok at once, assuming more surface area simply means faster cooking. Cook your beef in batches of no more than 250 grams at a time, leaving visible space between each piece as it hits the hot oil. A crowded pan traps steam and drops the surrounding temperature rapidly, replacing the fast, dry convection of hot-moving air with damp, stagnant heat that steams rather than sears the meat. Restaurant kitchens across Hong Kong cooking dozens of stir-fries a night always work in small batches, never overloading a single wok regardless of how busy the kitchen gets during peak hours. Overcrowding is one of the most common mistakes home cooks make without ever realizing it. What comes out of a properly spaced batch is browned, seared, and noticeably more flavorful than beef steamed in a crowded pan. Hit that subscribe button right now because number 2 is coming up, and it might be the trick that fixes the biggest mistake home cooks make before the beef even hits the plate. Number 6. The 30-second sear rule. Most people leave thin sliced beef in the wok far longer than it actually needs, watching it turn gray and tough well past the point of being done. Sear your beef for exactly 30 seconds per side over high heat, moving it only once to flip rather than tossing it constantly. Thin slices carry very little mass, meaning the latent heat already stored within the meat continues cooking it even after 30 seconds of direct contact with the wok surface. Restaurant cooks across Guangzhou, timing each batch by feel rather than a clock, have passed this exact 30-second rule down through generations of kitchen training. Most home cooks let beef sit far longer, assuming more time on the heat always means more thorough cooking. The beef that results stays juicy, pink at the very center, and remarkably tender rather than gray and overdone throughout. Number 5. Flipping only once. Most home cooks toss and stir beef constantly the moment it hits the wok, assuming more movement automatically means more even cooking across every single piece. Constant tossing repeatedly disrupts the myosin proteins on the meat's surface just as they begin to set, preventing the firm, seared crust that locks in juice from ever properly forming in the first place. Place your beef into the hot wok in a single layer, leaving a small gap between each piece rather than piling them on top of one another. Let it sit completely undisturbed for 15 seconds, then flip each piece exactly once using chopsticks or a spatula, working quickly through the entire batch. Street food vendors across Chengdu cooking thin-sliced beef over roaring high heat rely on this single flip, never tossing constantly the way many Western stir-fry techniques mistakenly suggest is necessary for even cooking. This small change in handling makes a measurable, noticeable difference in how the surface develops under heat. The beef that results comes out with a proper seared crust and a noticeably juicier, more tender interior than constantly tossed beef ever achieves, no matter how skilled the cook handling it happens to be. Drop a comment right now with which one of these 21 steps surprised you the most. We are almost to the final 2, and they tie everything together. Number 4. Removing beef before it's fully done. Most home cooks leave beef in the wok until it looks completely finished and fully cooked through, not realizing the meat continues cooking even well after the heat source is removed entirely. Pull your beef from the wok when it still looks slightly underdone at the very center, roughly 10 seconds earlier than instinct and visual habit usually tell you to. Heat continues moving steadily through the meat via diffusion, even off direct contact with the pan's surface, finishing the final stage of cooking gently and evenly rather than through aggressive, prolonged exposure to direct heat. Home cooks across Beijing, preparing quick beef stir-fries for weeknight family dinners, have always pulled meat slightly early, trusting the residual heat already stored inside to complete the job rather than relying on the wok itself for every last second. This single habit alone prevents what is genuinely the single most common mistake in stir-frying altogether. The beef finishes perfectly off the heat, coming out juicy and tender rather than dry, gray, and overcooked by the time it actually reaches the plate in front of you. Number 3. The 5-minute rest after cooking. Most people plate beef immediately the second it leaves the wok, watching the juices pool out visibly onto the serving dish within just a few seconds of contact. Restaurant cooks across Hong Kong let every cut of meat rest briefly before serving, treating the wait as a genuine part of the cooking process itself, rather than an unnecessary delay before the dish finally reaches the table. Move the cooked beef onto a clean plate. Let it sit completely untouched for 5 full minutes before slicing, garnishing, or serving it any further, resisting the urge to rush this final step. During the rest, the juices that were pushed toward the surface during high-heat cooking move back through the meat via capillary action, settling evenly throughout rather than escaping the moment a fork or knife makes contact. Skipping this step means much of the dish's natural moisture ends up sitting on the plate instead of staying locked inside the meat itself. What follows is noticeably juicier beef, with almost nothing lost during the entire serving process. Number 2. Slicing again before serving. Most people assume the first cut against the grain, made carefully before cooking even begins, is the only cut that actually matters for the final texture. A second light slice against the grain after cooking corrects any slight fiber realignment that happened during searing, a moment when muscle fibers can shift and tighten unpredictably under sudden intense heat exposure. Chefs across Sichuan province serving thin-sliced beef dishes always check the grain direction a second time after cooking finishes, never assuming the original cut remains perfectly aligned once heat has fully done its work. After the beef has rested, look closely at its surface one more time under good light. Slice any larger pieces thinly across the grain, exactly as you did before cooking began, taking the same careful approach. This final check remains one of the most overlooked steps in the entire tenderizing process, even among fairly experienced home cooks. Every piece comes out tender and easy to chew, with absolutely no stringy or tough bites slipping through unnoticed onto the plate. Number 1. The complete tenderizing system, the most powerful beef secret of all. Chefs across Guangzhou, Sichuan, and Hong Kong, 3 regions with completely different cooking styles and culinary traditions, all build tender beef the exact same underlying way. They never rely on one single trick in isolation. They follow a complete sequence, applied in order, on nearly every single piece of beef that leaves the kitchen. Most people pick one technique from this list, maybe just a marinade or a quick sear, and assume that alone solves the entire problem. That approach only ever gets you partway there. Here is the complete system. Start with the right cut, sliced thin, against the grain with real care. Rinse thoroughly and pat completely dry before anything else touches the meat. Apply the baking soda rub and rinse it off precisely within the 15-minute window, never longer. Velvet the beef in egg white or cornstarch, then marinate with rice wine added directly in alongside it. Seal with a final coat of oil and rest for 10 full minutes before cooking begins. Cook in a hot wok with cold oil in small batches, searing 30 seconds per side and flipping only once throughout. Pull the beef before it looks fully done. The brief acid contact from the rice wine earlier in the process significantly increases the bioavailability of the marinade's flavor compounds, meaning your final dish absorbs far more seasoning than skipping any single step along the way would ever allow. Cut, dry, baking soda, velvet, marinate, seal, sear, rest, slice again. Apply this complete sequence consistently, and the beef that results comes out tender, juicy, and remarkably restaurant quality every single time you cook it. This is the system that changes everything. Bonus: the one-bowl prep method. Combine your sliced beef, baking soda, rice wine, egg white, and cornstarch all together in a single bowl, rather than treating each individual step as its own completely separate process requiring its own dish. Mix in this exact order. Baking soda first, rinse and dry thoroughly, then add rice wine, egg white, and cornstarch together in one combined motion. Let the whole mixture rest undisturbed for 15 minutes in one single sitting, rather than breaking the resting time into smaller separate stages. Most people treat each tenderizing step as its own entirely separate process, washing extra bowls and resetting timers repeatedly between every individual stage of preparation. Home cooks across Sichuan province preparing beef for busy weeknight family dinners have combined these steps into one streamlined bowl process for generations, saving real time without ever skipping a single meaningful technique along the way. This single habit removes the biggest practical barrier between you and consistently tender, reliable beef on even your busiest, most rushed cooking night of the week. And that is exactly why we make these videos for you, breaking down techniques most people never learn until someone finally explains the reasoning behind each individual step. If today's breakdown genuinely helped you, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another guide exactly like this one in the future. We have got more deep dives coming your way, from the hidden secrets of Chinese pork tenderizing to 31 clever wok techniques that will completely change how you cook at home, all designed to help you eat better, waste less, and cook smarter every single day in your own kitchen. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay sharp, stay precise, and keep cooking with confidence. Drop a comment below with the one step from this entire system you are trying first in your own kitchen. Let us see which one wins out for you.